All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving deep into, that's my EIR, the Wealth Mindset Guide.
Oh, by Vincente E. Bradford.
That's right, Vincente E. Bradford. It's funny, that title, it immediately takes me back to being a kid, riding in the back seat.
Every cool car that drove by.
Yeah, that's my car.
Yeah.
That's my car. But this book, it takes that childhood energy, and it asks, like, what happens next? What's the difference between just pointing at a dream and actually getting behind the wheel?
It's like Bradford is saying, look, we all have these aspirations, these visions of a better life, but the folks who actually reach that level of wealth, they do something different. They don't just dream it, they map it out.
So it's not just like visualizing a Ferrari in your driveway. It's about having a plan. Like, okay, here are the steps to actually get there.
Exactly. And that's where the first chapter, the power of vision and imagination, really comes in. He uses this great example, Steve Jobs. Think about the iPhone. I mean, that wasn't some lucky break. It was Jobs' vision.
A vision he had for like years before it actually happened, right?
Absolutely. He saw computers as tools for creativity, extensions of our minds almost. And he meticulously planned and executed that vision.
So, okay, instead of just daydreaming about a mansion, I need to be, sketching out blueprints? That seems a little, I don't know, restrictive. What about like those unexpected opportunities that pop up? You got to be flexible.
And Bradford addresses that. He's not saying you need to have every minute of the next 5 years planned to the second. It's about direction. It's about having that clear image of where you want to be financially and then making choices that get you closer to that. He even has this exercise, where you write down your ideal financial life 5 years from now, all the details. And he says to visualize it every day.
So it's like programming your internal GPS for financial success. It's a cool way to think about it.
It is. And, speaking of navigating towards success, Chapter 2, Wealth is a Mindset, this is where things get really interesting. This is where we start to see how the wealthy think differently.
Okay, yeah, the whole abundance versus scarcity mindset. Everybody talks about it, but what does that actually look like in real life?
Well, Bradford argues that truly wealthy individuals, they operate from a place of abundance. They believe opportunities are unlimited. Like, it's not about fighting for a piece of a fixed pie. It's about knowing you can bake as many pies as you want.
It's a pretty powerful image.
Yeah.
Is that why he uses the example of Jeff Bezos and Amazon?
Exactly. Think about it. He started as an online bookstore, which back then, pretty niche market. And look at it now, this global marketplace selling everything under the sun.
But a lot of people would have been content with just having a successful bookstore. What made Bezos think, let's sell everything?
That's the abundance mindset in action. He wasn't limited by what Amazon was already doing, always looking for new possibilities, new ways to expand.
So how do we, average folks, how do we even begin to cultivate that kind of mindset? Is it just positive thinking, or is there something more to it?
Well, Bradford has some really interesting ideas about this. In Chapter 3, The Language of Success, he talks about how the language we use can actually shape our reality. Like, instead of saying, I can't afford that, the wealthy will ask, how can I afford that?
So it's not just about what you believe, it's about how you frame things, the actual words you use.
Right. It's about shifting from, like, a statement of limitation to a question that seeks a solution. And this idea of shaping your environment, it goes beyond just your own thoughts. It's about the people you surround yourself with, too.
Which brings us to Chapter 4, the circle of influence, right?
That's the one.
You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That quote. But does that mean we should only be hanging out with, like, super successful people? Don't you need different perspectives, even people who challenge your views?
You're absolutely right. And Bradford acknowledges that. It's not just about surrounding yourself with successful people. It's about surrounding yourself with people who inspire you, people who challenge you to grow. Think of Bill Gates seeking mentorship from Warren Buffett, even though Gates was already incredibly successful in his own right.
So it's less about, like, basking in someone else's success and more about being intentional about who you let into your inner circle.
Precisely. Making sure they're pushing you to evolve. And a big part of that evolution, a big part of growth, comes from being willing to step outside your comfort zone and take risks. Which brings us to Chapter 5, The Art of Calculated Risk.
Okay, the art of calculated risk. So we've talked about vision, mindset, even the language we use, but now it's time for action, right? That's where these calculated risks come in.
That's exactly it. This chapter really gets into how wealthy individuals, they see risk as a necessary part of the game. They don't run from it, but they're not, jumping off cliffs without a parachute either. It's all about weighing those potential rewards against the potential downsides.
But how do you know which risks are worth taking? I mean, it's easy to look back at like Elon Musk and say, oh yeah, Tesla, that was a brilliant move. But how do we make those judgments in the moment?
Well, Bradford highlights the importance of doing your homework. He uses Warren Buffett as an example, the Oracle of Omaha, famous for his incredibly thorough approach to investing.
Right. Buffett only invests in what he understands. He doesn't just like throw darts at a stock board.
Exactly. He's not chasing fads. He's doing the research, understanding the ins and outs of the businesses he's putting his money into.
So it's not just about like having a high tolerance for risk. It's about understanding the risk you're taking, which, even then things don't always go as planned, right?
And that leads us to one of the most powerful concepts in the book, the idea of embracing failure.
Ooh, yeah. That's always been a tough one for me. Failure it feels so final. Like, is there a way to actually reframe that in your mind?
Chapter 8, The Wealth in Failure, really tackles this head on. Bradford argues that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of the journey. Think about Thomas Edison, right? 10,000 attempts to create the light bulb. Most people would have given up way before that.
But Edison saw it as, what was it like? I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Exactly. Every setback, it's an opportunity, a chance to learn, to adjust, to refine your approach. And that idea of refining your approach, it actually ties into the next chapter, which is all about focus.
Chapter 9, The Power of Focus.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially in today's world. I mean, distractions are everywhere. How do we actually shut out the noise and zero in on what matters?
Bradford uses this brilliant analogy. He compares focus to a magnifying glass, how it can take the sun's rays and create fire. It's about harnessing your energy and directing it with laser precision. And he gives some practical strategies for this, like Warren Buffett's two-list strategy. Have you heard of that?
I don't think so.
He writes down his top 5 goals, like the most important things he wants to accomplish. And then everything else, everything that's not on that list, he ignores it completely.
Wow. That takes some serious discipline. Is that even, humanly possible?
Well, it takes practice. But Bradford argues that the wealthy, they've mastered the art of selective focus. They know where to put their energy. And there's another great example, Steve Jobs. When he went back to Apple, he completely simplified their product line. They were trying to do too much, and it was diluting their impact.
So it's about quality over quantity in terms of, our goals and how we spend our time.
Exactly. It's about choosing what matters most and then pouring your energy into that. And, that brings us to another key element of success that Bradford highlights, the power of relationships.
Chapter 10, The Wealth of Relationships. Okay, now we're talking. But we already talked about your circle of influence, the people you surround yourself with. Is there something more to it than that?
There is. Bradford makes a distinction between just networking and building genuine, mutually beneficial relationships. It's not about collecting business cards. It's about connecting with people who share your values, who can support your vision.
So it's more about collaboration than competition.
Exactly. And he also talks about the power of those weak ties, acquaintances, people you might not see all the time, but who can open doors to unexpected opportunities.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I tend to focus on, my close circle of friends and colleagues, but I guess there's a whole world of potential connections out there that I'm probably missing.
You know what? This actually brings us back to the idea of risk, but from a slightly different angle. Chapter 11 is called The Fearless Embrace of Risk and Failure, Part 2.
Wait, a Part 2? I thought we already covered risk and failure.
We did, but Bradford comes back to these ideas to really drive home the point that they're not just isolated concepts, they're ongoing themes. It's a constant reminder that you can't achieve great things without being willing to step outside your comfort zone, to embrace that possibility of setbacks.
So it's about persistence and resilience, not letting fear hold you back.
Exactly. And this all leads to the final chapter, which brings all of these principles together under the umbrella of ownership.
Chapter 12, The Power of Ownership, Owning Your Mind, Wealth, and Life. Okay, this sounds like the grand finale. What does Bradford mean by owning your wealth?
It's all about taking responsibility for your financial future. It's about understanding that you have the power to shape your destiny. You're not a passive bystander. And he uses some really inspiring examples. Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z, Sarah Blakely, all individuals who took control of their careers and built massive success on their own terms.
So it's not just about managing your money. It's about having a a sense of control over your entire financial life.
Exactly. And that sense of ownership, it extends beyond just finances. It's about owning your mindset, your decisions, your actions.
That's pretty powerful. But one thing that keeps coming back to me as we're talking about all these principles is the idea of delayed gratification.
That's a great point. It's something Bradford touches on in Chapter 6, the wealth of discipline and delayed gratification. But it really does weave its way through the entire book, doesn't it?
Like that marshmallow test thing.
Mm-hmm.
Were those kids who resisted, were they just born with more willpower? Or is there something we can do to train that muscle?
Well, the research suggests it's a combination of factors, temperament, upbringing, even cognitive skills. But the good news is delayed gratification, it's a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed.
So it's not just about being a naturally patient person. It's something you can actively work on and get better at.
Absolutely. There are techniques, strategies you can use to strengthen that ability to resist the immediate gratification and hold out for the bigger reward later on.
I'd love to hear more about that, but it seems like we're running out of time for this part of our deep dive.
You're right. We've covered a lot of ground today, but there are still a few key insights and actionable strategies that we'll delve into in part 3.
All right, we're back for the final stretch of our deep dive into, that's IYAUIAR, the Wealth Mindset Guide. We've talked about vision, mindset, even, how to deal with those inevitable setbacks. But is there anything we've missed? Any big piece of the puzzle?
Well, we've hit on most of the key principles, but there's one concept that I think really ties everything together, and that's leverage.
You're talking about Chapter 7, leveraging what you have, right?
Yeah.
That was a big one for me.
It's a game changer. Bradford argues that wealthy individuals, they're masters of leverage. They understand that they don't have to do everything themselves. They leverage their time, their money, their relationships, even their failures to achieve, exponential growth.
You give some pretty practical examples, like using other people's money to invest in real estate or building systems that generate, passive income. For someone like me who's used to, trading time for money, those concepts are kind of mind-blowing.
It's a different way of thinking about wealth creation. It's not just about working harder, it's about working smarter, finding ways to multiply your efforts. And, leverage isn't just for the super rich. It's something anyone can use.
Yeah, like delegating tasks, building a strong network, even just creating systems that automate parts of your work.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, taking control.
Which really connects back to that idea of ownership we discussed earlier. When you own your life, your finances, your decisions, you're in a much better position to leverage the resources and opportunities that come your way.
Absolutely. It's about being the driver, not the passenger. And before we wrap up, there's one final point from That's My by Faye Cryer that I think is really important, the importance of purpose.
That's interesting. It's true. The book focuses on a lot of practical strategies for building wealth, but Bradford also talks about aligning those financial goals with a deeper sense of purpose. It's not just about stacking up dollar bills, right?
Right. It's about using wealth as a tool to create the life you want, to make a positive impact. He talks about people like Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z, individuals who've used their wealth to give back, to pursue passions that go beyond just financial gain.
So finding that balance between financial success and living a life that's truly fulfilling, that aligns with your values.
Exactly. It's about asking yourself, what does That's My KRR represent for me? Mm-hmm. What are you building towards? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
That's a powerful question. And it really brings us full circle back to that childhood game, pointing at those cars, dreaming big. It's a reminder that, we all have aspirations and that achieving financial success, it's not just about the money itself. It's about what that money allows us to do, who it allows us to become.
It's about creating a life of meaning and impact for yourself and for others.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. We've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into, that's my KIEAR, the Wealth Mindset Guide. But hopefully you've gotten a sense of those key principles, those strategies that successful individuals use to create wealth.
Remember, it's not just about the money. It's about the mindset, the habits, the relationships that support your journey. It's about taking ownership and using your wealth to create a life that's both prosperous and fulfilling.
So as we close out this deep dive, we want to leave you with this. What vision are you ready to own? What are you ready to bring to life? The journey starts with that first step, that decision to take control.
And we hope this deep dive has given you the tools and the inspiration to take that step.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
See you next time.